Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar on how to build #1 ranked digital transformation programs with value colleges. We're going to be sharing how your institution can bridge the critical skills gap by offering digital transformation courses. Now, since 2014, the Office of Continuing Studies at Duke University has successfully utilized e-learning programs to bridge this gap, with Simplilearn providing skills training in a variety of digital economy technologies through online self-paced video courses and live virtual classrooms. It's a proven way to immediately add extended education offerings for career-focused individuals and companies seeking to upskill their employees. We can start beginning. I just want to introduce our panelists today. Our expert guests for this webinar include Dr. Gabe Sidney Morris, the Assistant Professor of English at Johnson C. Smith University and a higher education consultant with more than 15 years of experience in R1 public research institutions as well as Duke University. We'll also be joined by Whitney Murphy, Program Manager at Duke Continuing Studies, and Logan Hollowell, who is our Academic Programs and Partnerships Manager here at Simplilearn, to give us an overview. And we'll just start off with Logan. Hello, Logan. How are you doing today?
Hi, Dan. Thank you very much for the introduction, and hello to the audience. Thank you for joining us. It's been kind of a really interesting journey working here to build such a great program. It's been a pleasure to work with Duke, and we're very happy to have had the involvement of Value Colleges as well. Was actually the one who had us kind of do a ranking in this program. The way we get there, and I think that the best place to start is to take a look at the market. And what we can do from Simplilearn's perspective is kind of start with why we're in business. And that is to help businesses compete and succeed in the digital economy. What does that mean? Well, the digital economy is typically content areas that can be defined by a couple of different areas. It's either fast-moving, it's an emerging process, it's technology is changing over, there's a new technology that's coming out. And it sometimes is a challenge to figure out how to integrate that into your business process. So because of that, there's not very well-defined training opportunities for learners to start learning about that unless they're in the industry. And so when you have these learners that are trying to assist and work with these businesses to pursue that new opportunity, oftentimes there's challenges. And when you're that learner and you're trying to dig in and trying to better yourself and you know there's opportunity out there, it results in a gap where you have the urge to learn, you need to learn. It's just challenging outside looking in about where you go to get that sort of training. Typically, you think of a university partner, and so you would go and look for the university to help you with that goal, that career path towards meaningful employment. And what we're seeing in the market is that when these three entities don't communicate well, you end up with the critical skills gap. That's the buzzword that everyone is so familiar with. When we look at Simplilearn, we take a look at who those participants are in that digital economy. So these are some of our organizations and partners that we've worked with. And it just goes to show it is a global problem. Everybody is looking to train in more efficient ways so that they can compete for these new opportunities. So with that, where does Simplilearn fit in with this wonderful program? Our catalog is, broadly speaking, focused directly in that digital economy content areas. We like to call it digital transformation technology. And so what we do is we have our own line of consumer business where we help learners, professionals that are mid-career professionals typically are looking for career change or career entry to get to those skills in place so that they can connect with the businesses. And the businesses will come to us and they'll be looking at it and they'll say, hey, we have a digital initiative we want to roll out. Can you help us? And so we're communicating with the businesses there to help them support their emerging needs. And then you have a university such as Duke Continuing Studies where they want to help and assist with these learners. And there's a lot of challenges here in areas for miscommunication. So with Simplilearn being in between both the individual learner and the international business community, we can provide some lessons learned in an ongoing conversation with Duke where Duke can take those lessons learned, figure out how they're going to provide value, and then communicate that to the learner. And then in that way, we all work together collaboratively to focus on reducing that critical skills gap. And so how does Simplilearn do that? Broadly speaking, it's through two areas. Our first is our content, and that's kind of one of the key aspects of what the value that we bring to the equation is. We align our content in various different categories. As a category or an emerging process is developed it takes a certain amount of time for it to kind of coalesce into something that we can coherently call a category. So our newest one, artificial intelligence and machine learning and digital selling, are coming out of the results of, about 18 months, 24 months, the last 2 years of technology advancements, where you're now seeing that as an area of focus, and those job roles are coming out. What that means is it justifies us creating a category, and there's also, when we create a category, there's also an opportunity to engage with leading global influencers. So with the instance of artificial intelligence, we've engaged with the #1 rated individual, Mike Tamir, to kind of help us with our category, and then guide us through kind of course selection, et cetera, as the category matures. And so that's where Simplilearn kind of uses its market awareness to identify emerging categories, align with them with global leaders, and then start working through a coherent way to build out an offering that supports those career strategies of learners. Now, how do we support that? How do we deliver that once it's built? We have a proprietary LMS that we've built that focuses, one, on self-paced learning for the flexibility of delivering, mobile optimized, you can use it out of your smartphone, but also an opportunity for instructor-led live virtual classrooms. And what we've noticed is that when you add that live component, it's really powerful as a tool to encourage course completion. We also have a focus on developing opportunities for case study and project work, applied practice, and simulation. And, it's always aligned to that real-world need, that real-world application. All of our content is aligned to industry standard, where possible, vendor standard, where not. And from that perspective, what we like to say is we'll get you the learnings, but we'll also get you some of that practical application, so that when you land in your job, you're ready. It's not you've passed the test and now you're not certain necessarily how to use what you've learned, but no, the skills that you're learning have an immediate practical application. So you might say, okay, well, we've talked a lot about emerging technology and you've talked about all this new stuff. Why? We understand that, but is there data behind that? And so this is a snapshot of when we look at our category growth, and our participants are actually of the number of enrollments we have by category in the last year. And so what we've seen in these emerging process areas, we've seen a lot of really strong growth and interest in our big data and analytics, our mobile. The cloud one is quite high. We've opened up a couple of new offerings there in both Azure and Google. And so we're seeing a lot of explosive growth there. But yeah, digital marketing has been strong and has been growing significantly for multiple years, as you can also see with the popularity of the Duke program. And then when we look at the traditional categories, I wouldn't necessarily say that they're any less important. It's just one of those things where there's a stronger interest on the emerging side, because so much of the new opportunity in the economy is in those categories. And then so you might say, okay, you see growth in these categories. Well, who's doing that? Who's enrolling? Then what we look at is by category, we ask them, and this is all volunteered information, we ask, who is taking this course? And so when we look at these courses by category, we can see that there's job roles. The reason that this is important is because we can understand who in the economy is needing these skills, so that when we start doing any sort of program analysis, or we start doing program design, we can understand who needs this training. And oftentimes you'll see, as you look at the age brackets as well, you'll see it's that mid-career professional, and it's either somebody who is making an industry change or a career change, or they're looking for career advancement. And so that is also supported when we ask the question, how has digital training helped you? We want to know, has it had a positive effect on your work life? And what we're finding is that, 94% of learners are saying that it has been effective when they've completed it. It's given them more confidence, it's enhanced their performance at work, and very few people say that it's not helpful. And so that kind of demonstrates the value of flexible online learning in a real concrete way. Following up on that, what we found is that when we ask the question, how does digital training impact your career, we find that, yes, it not only does it make your job, your day-to-day duties easier and more effective, it actually has a positive effect on your career, either in new jobs, promotions, or raises in pay. And really what we like to take this as a lesson learned is, and kind of the key insights that we're observing in this area is that when you focus on these emerging processes and technologies, and you enable individuals to compete, it betters their lives. And so that's what I think the big takeaway from where we have programs like this is we find out, okay, what makes the learner's life better? What opens up opportunity for them? And how do we effectively and efficiently provide that training for them to empower themselves to pursue those better and more meaningful careers? So then we ask, That's all well and good from Simplilearn's perspective, but who are the academic learners? And with that, I'd like to bring in Gabe here. He would be much more of an expert on, who these sorts of programs can provide value to. So Gabe, if you want to jump on.
Thank you, Logan. As Dan mentioned before, I'm Gabe Seeley-Morris, and I'm an assistant professor of English, but I'm here today as a representative of Value Colleges, which is an independent ranking and information site for college students. And with Value Colleges, in recent years, we've also been very interested in emerging fields and emerging technologies, and we've been trying to lead the way in information and rankings about programs like big data, like digital marketing, and in looking for non-traditional ways of educating students and educating the workforce. Value College's primary audience is generally first-generation students who tend to come from a low-income or a minority or an underrepresented population group, or working adults, the people that Logan has been talking about, those who are changing careers, those who are adding credentials for promotion or for advancement, those who are returning to the workforce or returning to school in order to return to the workforce. And Value College's emphasis for these students is a focus on schools and degrees that pay off. What these demographics have in common is that these are people who do not have the luxury of going to college for college's sake, as traditionally we've thought of as college, as a way of exploring what you want to do with your life or who you want to be when you grow up or who you are. First-generation students, working adult students, tend to have in common the fact that they need to see an end goal, and they need to see how college is going to pay off for them in a real-world, tangible way, whether that is social mobility or an entry into a professional career, or if that way is promotion in their current career, a career change, or advancement and more income.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that. So that's a good, intro on who are the academic learners, and I think that's also a great segue to bring in Whitney. Whitney, you've been with the program from the start, and you have some thoughts about how Duke kind of looks at designing things. So with that, I guess I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Logan. As mentioned earlier, I'm Whitney Murphy. I'm the program manager here at Duke Continuing Studies, and I handle a number of programs here, but most notably our digital marketing program, Big Data Certificate, and our newest program in digital selling. Here at Duke, when we think about working with a partner, really our first priority, our number one priority is going to be setting up new programming to make sure that we are authentic to our brand. Duke has a very strong brand name. We want to make sure that we maintain that. Anytime we decide to offer a new program, we also aim to make that program the most comprehensive in the business, because we wouldn't be Duke if we didn't want to be the best at everything, right? It needs to also be extremely high quality so that, again, it reflects the Duke standards for excellence. Ideally, any new program should also be aligned in some way to a national certification. In our case, we align the digital media and marketing program to the OMCP, which stands for the Online Marketing Certified Professional Certification. And that to us suggests that the content is not only comprehensive, but also actually relevant to the skills that are needed to work in the industry. One of the reasons that we chose to go with an external partner in the case of our more tech-related programs is really because we just can't keep up with the pace of change in these industries. And if we want to stay relevant and stay the best, of course, we need to stay relevant to these current market trends and make sure that we have the most up-to-date content possible. And that's where Simplilearn comes into play. Another important thing to consider when working with a partner is just to make sure that you differentiate yourself. In our case, Simplilearn does offer similar products, and so we've made it a point from the very beginning to set up differentiators for what we offer so that we can obviously stand out. And then, of course, there's more to consider when you're working with a partner or just building a new program in general. And the very first and foremost thing that comes to mind is doing your not just doing your research, but building the program. There's a number of things to think about. Market research is one of the first things we usually do. And that is basically making sure that we've done our homework so that we know what kind of skills are in demand, and we can align our program with opportunity in the market. What we do when we do our research, because after all, Duke is a research-based institution, we check to see how many total jobs are available, as well as how many are going to go unfilled in certain subject areas. And this helps us really determine where to focus our energies so that we can have an impact on supporting the critical skills gap. We also rely on...
Where do you find a lot of that information?
I was going to say, we rely on Simplilearn a lot for this information, as they do studies into the market and are constantly scrolling through a lot of the hiring websites and things like that. And right now, the hot topics are, of course, digital marketing, big data, machine learning, and digital selling, and everything all things tech related is what we're seeing.
Do you have particular websites that you look for, like Glassdoor or Indeed? Do you have any other ones that you prefer?
I think those are the top ones for us. And once we know, actually, we like the U.S. News and World Report as well. They have a lot of information about the kind of subject areas that are going to be in demand, in the next, 5-10 years. And so we do rely on that as well. And once we know sort of what's hot and what's popular, we can focus our energies on determining who our ideal student is. In most cases, our folks are career changers. They're also folks looking to build their resumes through new skills, or even people who are looking for what we call a total digital skills makeover. So someone who's been working in any industry for, let's say, 10 to 20 years and just really needs to completely reinvigorate their skill set and learn some of these digital transformation skills. That's kind of our people in a nutshell, which means that we really do have people of all ages, experience levels, and walks of life in our programs, which is pretty neat. And of course, continuing on the research train, when a student is considering a program that they might want to take, there's a lot of things to think about. I'm going to ask a lot of questions here. So what can you afford to spend on the program? Obviously, prices vary greatly, from a 2-hour online program to a 2-week or even 2-year online program. So you just never know. It just all depends on the amount of time that you want to spend and how much money you can spend. Is the program online, or is it in the classroom, or some combination of both? Because obviously online is quite popular, but people do still like to have that interaction with an instructor. Do you have to be anywhere at a specific time, like in the case of either an actual classroom program or a live virtual program? Do you have to fit it into your schedule at a specific time, or can you be there whenever you want? Who are the instructors, and do you actually get any time with them to ask questions? What type of learning opportunities are included? For example, are there labs and simulations where you can practice what you've learned? After all, we really believe that hands-on is really the best way to learn if you want to actually have a set of skills that you can take and use in a job. You should also ask, is there any live interaction? That's a key thing to know. And lastly, does this program have any reviews you can see before signing up? I think that's also becoming increasingly important in the day of, the day and age of Google and reviews all over the web.
I wonder if you could expand, seeing as a lot of people are attracted to the convenience of self-paced online learning, what is the benefit of live interaction? If you could expand on that.
I think I can jump in with some data points. What we've seen, from a pretty large sample size on the self-paced side, industry standards are typically, somewhere between 15 and 25% course completion rates. When you add a live instructional component, whether it's, on-site or in a virtual classroom, what we've observed is that our course completion rates have gone north of 70%. So I think that's just a testament to, you always hear the word engagement from, the learning field, but it's a testament to the strength of that kind of human interaction when you're learning. Everyone needs a hug every once in a while, and if you don't have a live person on the other side who can look at you and see, okay, that person needs a hug, then you lose out on some of that engagement opportunity. So I think that's definitely backed up by some strong data.
Thank you, Logan. I appreciate you answering that question for me. You did it so nicely. The last thing here is I just would say be sure to consider both your own limitations as well as the limitations of the school you choose, because really not all programs can be all things to all students. So when you think about signing up for a program, there's a few more things you have to ask yourself, as if you haven't asked yourself enough already. You need to ask, does the program provide any printable materials like slides and study guides that you can keep after your program has expired? Because many of these programs are time limited. And Duke does provide you with both in our technical-based program. Does the program or university offer any resume assistance or career guidance, for example? And Duke actually can't do either because we don't have the support structures in place to do so, but other schools may be able to provide that as a value add, so just keep that in mind. Does the program provide you with a specific credential or certificate? Some will do both, but most will only do one. And Duke actually will provide you with a certificate of completion that shows you met the requirements for our program. Our curriculum is also aligned with the OMCP requirements. That, again, is the Online Marketing Certified Professional, but you don't actually earn that certification when you finish our program.
If I could jump in again, Whitney, how does Duke define the difference between a certificate and a certification?
Absolutely. That's actually one of my top asked questions, Gabe, so thank you. A certificate is typically the actual physical piece of paper or downloadable version of said paper that's issued by a university or even a company that provides educational programming, and that shows that the student completed a particular program. They might have had a attendance requirement or a specific grade they needed to achieve, and that certificate indicates that that student has met those requirements. And typically a certificate does not expire. Now, a certification is something completely different. It's a much more formal process in many cases, and it requires that the person take an exam that will test on his or her knowledge of a given subject area. So that exam has a fee associated with it. You would want to register, months to weeks in advance, and you go and sit and take this test. It's in a timed environment, and you earn at the end, assuming you pass the test, you earn a designation. That designation, in this case, could be the OMCP, or if you're in the HR industry, it could be the SHRM CP, for example. Any certification is going to also require that you also renew the certification every couple of years. It's different for each certification, and that the person is also maintaining their level of knowledge by attending classes, for example, that are going to earn them continuing education credits in that arena. So hopefully that answers your question, Gabe. So in terms of what we think of as success and what success looks like to us, here at Duke, I think what makes the Duke program particularly successful and worth our high ranking is a couple of things. One is that we have a truly dedicated support from the university, both on the technical side and on the administrative side, so that students have a relationship with the program manager, which in this case is myself, and feel comfortable that their needs will be met and their desires, and unfortunately, sometimes complaints will be heard. Ideally, this dedicated support person, should ideally be one person, a single point of contact who also has detailed program knowledge, and that really helps the students feel more like they're going to get the answers to the questions they need and be taken care of. And this really ensures that the student feels like a person and not a number. And lastly, the university should own the program management, not the partner. So while the partner, Simplilearn in this case, is extremely important, and we could not do this without them, they need to take the back seat and let Duke sit in the driver's seat in this situation. And in our case, that's exactly what happens. We are ultimately fully responsible to our students for both their positive and their negative experiences. And this really does encourage a very strong student engagement from the university so that students truly feel like they're having a Duke University experience, which is what's the most important to us. So I think that's all I've got.
From the students' learning perspective, or kind of their experience, when they ask questions on it, they're talking to you before they've even made the choice. So they're learning about the program from you, and then once they enroll, you're kind of guiding the whole experience from start to finish. That's a correct understanding?
Logan, that's exactly right. So I am like their concierge to their learning experience. I like to think of it. It's a very important role, and I think it really does make the partnership very seamless. So the student really does feel like they're getting that kind of Duke touch and Duke experience. So, you've heard from me and from Duke what we think success looks like and why we think we're the best, but I'm going to turn it over to Gabe so he can tell you what Value Colleges really looks for in a successful program.
Thank you, Whitney. So the title of this webinar is Building a Top-Ranked Program, and Value Colleges has ranked Duke's Digital Marketing as our #1 program of its kind. And so I would like to talk a little bit about how we came to that conclusion. So Value Colleges, the tagline is the best colleges, the lowest cost, the highest returns. And as I mentioned, our readership, our intended audience tend to be people who care about their costs and their returns. We're very interested and have been interested for a while in emerging fields, which means that in a lot of cases there's not a great deal of formal, traditional attention from colleges and universities. Colleges and universities are notoriously slow to catch up with changes in technology, changes in the job market itself. So we have found ourselves looking quite often at non-traditional ways of educating and training in these emerging areas. We look for schools and degrees that pay off for their students. We generally define value with 3 different sets of criteria, 3 different metrics. And one is reputation. That generally comes from sources, ranking sources such as U.S. News and World Report, as Whitney was mentioning, the Times World Ranking, Washington Monthly, publications like that do research on purely how a college university is perceived. Because reputation is a value. Reputation has a real world and a real world job market value. The name on a resume can open or close doors, as every job seeker is aware of. Obviously, an institution like Duke has an extremely high name brand recognition, an extremely high reputation. To be able to see a non-traditional program, a certificate program from Duke carrying that reputation, that has real job market impact. We also tend to look at cost, and that is, as I said before, a real consideration for our audience, especially when we're talking about working adults, returning students, non-traditional aged, working professional students. By and large, they are paying their own way through a program. So cost is a real consideration, whether they are going to have to go into debt for it, whether they are going to have to tighten up their belts for a year or two, and whether that cost, alongside the cost of time and energy, is going to produce a return on investment. The working adults, the non-traditional students that a program like Duke's Continuing Studies program appeals to, need to see that everything that they're doing, whether it is taking time away from their jobs, taking time away from their families, taking time away from their recreation, if that's going to have a real return. And we look at things like pay scale, things like iPads, to see what kinds of returns students are getting. Primarily what they can expect to make coming out of the program, what they can expect to make mid-career, how much more they will make with a particular degree or program from a particular college or university, as opposed to if they had gone on without it. And those 3 together we tend to take in equal measure as defining what we think of as being value. So one of the considerations, one of the questions that a working adult or a returning student is going to have to consider, as Whitney said, you have to do your research. And one area that of real consideration is whether to get a degree or whether to go to continuing education for a certificate or some other sort of credential. A degree, in general, obviously has its upsides and downsides. It's going to cost a lot more to get a full degree, whether that is finishing a bachelor's degree or getting a master's degree. Obviously, it's going to take longer to get directly into the field because a degree takes longer. Again, whether it's finishing a bachelor's degree or getting a master's degree, that's an investment of 2-3 years or more, whereas the certificate is going to be much shorter. The other thing about a degree program, especially for working adult students, is that to get a bachelor's degree and even to get a master's degree, you're going to have to take a lot of courses that are not directly relevant to what you're studying or to your career goals. And in a traditional thinking or in a traditional understanding of college, that's fine because you're getting well-rounded and you are making yourself a more knowledgeable person. But for those who are already working in the field or who are trying to change their careers, that can be perceived as a waste of time. So it's important to recognize that in a degree program, you're going to take things that are not directly relevant to you. On the other hand, it's very important to remember and to take into consideration that a degree is going to carry a higher value on your resume. The degree is going to look better on paper than a certificate to employers. And that's just fact of the job market and the fact of how we perceive different kinds of education. Now, on the other hand, a professional certificate for working adults, for job changers, is going to be much more directed and it's going to be much more targeted to the career path. As Logan and Whitney were both talking about in developing the program at Duke, they take into consideration what that particular field of business is looking for. They take into consideration what real employers are asking for, what they want their employees to be able to do. So that very direct link between business and the industry that you want to go into and the program that you're taking can be very valuable. A certificate also gets you into the field faster, plain and simple. It can be a year or even less to get a certificate, a continuing ed certificate. While it may not carry the same value as a degree, which I just was talking about, that in itself is industry dependent. In a lot of industries, the primary interest or the primary concern is whether you can do the job or not. And that's especially true of emerging technologies and emerging fields like digital marketing. A certificate tells an employer that you have had training in this field and that you can do the job. So when a working adult, when a non-traditional student is considering this question, whether to go with a degree program or whether to go with continuing education, the main question to ask is, what do you need to do what you want? If what you want is to get into the field more quickly with the information that you need to know to do the job or to advance in your career, a certificate makes sense.
So yeah, I think we'll start kind of wrapping it up here shortly. But Gabe, I think you've covered a lot of the points to choose from when choosing a program. And, I think, these are questions that anyone should rightly ask when they're looking at investing in self-development and kind of how that aligns to their goals for career progression, how to effectively leverage your investment once you're in there, and where you perceive and find value. I think personally the strength of the program is, when you have that element like Whitney, a program manager who's going to walk you through the whole process, that high-touch concierge level of service, I think that's a huge differentiator. And it's one of those things that I think is oftentimes missed is, hey, who's going to help me push through the program? Who's going to help me, if I have a question? Sometimes it's not the instructor per se, but it might be the program manager. And so in that sense, Whitney, if you want to talk a little bit, I'm sure you have some anecdotes about pushing students through to finish, or because I know you stay pretty engaged with your students.
Thanks, Logan. I stay more engaged than I probably ought to, yes. And constantly going to bat for them and trying to figure out ways to make the system that we have even more user-friendly and provide even more opportunities to help them stay on track, essentially. I recently created a little introductory video of myself, sort of guiding students through the coursework as they're first getting started to give that extra level of touch. And I have a very detailed spreadsheet where I keep up with our students' activities and do basically I send a manual reminder to students, after about 6 months, and then again about 1 month before they expire, and offer my assistance in determining how much they need to be doing in the next few months to finish the program, etc. So I try to make myself as available as possible for situations like that, which happens pretty frequently.
Right. And I'm sure that makes everyone feel good, particularly the participants. In fact, we got together with Whitney and some alumni, and we captured some of those sentiments. So I'd like to play a video because you can hear us talk about the program, but I think it's always best to talk about the people who've been through the program. So this is a video of some alumni that we put together about their experiences going through the program and what it's done for them. Just one administrative note. If you're on a cell phone call-in, it might be a little bit echoey, and the video may be a little bit choppy due to bandwidth, but the audio should be just fine. So with that, we'll listen to this short video, and then we will wrap it all up and open up the floor for questions.
This is Duke University. Hi, my name is Kristen Fox. I work for the Walt Disney Company in Los Angeles, California.
Hi, my name is Joseph Yamin, and I'm from Caracas, Venezuela.
Hi, I'm Alice Freeman, 47 years old from Powder Springs, Georgia. Hi, I'm Michelle, and I'm 25 from Atlanta, Georgia. My name is Sarah Poole, and I'm the head of marketing for a global eyewear company.
My name is Scott Willisberg. I'm a web content specialist.
Hi, I'm Patty from Chicago, and I completed the Duke Digital Media and Marketing program.
I decided I needed to specialize in something to help set me apart from the crowd.
The Duke program offered courses in SEO, SEM, digital analytics, email marketing, all in one convenient location. One of the things I was wondering about is how much time is this going to take? Do I have enough time to complete the course? What you need to understand is it's really about 30 hours a month.
The best thing about it is the flexibility. It allowed me to log on at night time and do my classes. It gave me more time to accomplish my goals.
I needed an intensive program, one where I could go beyond the buzzwords.
You will be so surprised at how much you don't know.
I was able to take that knowledge and those tools and build a company which I've now sold. So the digital media and marketing program has forever changed my life.
I'm also the mum of 2 busy children, and this course gave me the ability to learn digital marketing concepts within the tight restraints of my schedule.
What has been really rewarding, I guess, is giving me the opportunity to open new doors that I haven't been thinking about before. So it's definitely a very exciting experience.
What I liked most about the digital media and marketing certification was delving into all those disciplines to help create a more well-rounded marketer. Somebody capable not only of providing the content for a multi-channel marketing campaign, but also someone capable of distributing it, measuring it, testing it, and optimizing it.
I wanted to take what I love, which was marketing, but I wanted to do it on my own terms, and the Duke program allowed me to do that. So now, my mornings were just a little bit different. I was able to do it on this couch while my little kids slept, and felt like I could apply it pretty much immediately to every day I do at work.
And after the program, I decided that I would quit my day job and inspire me to start my own digital marketing agency.
So whether you're a busy mom, a busy dad, or just a busy person looking for that course to educate yourself on digital marketing, to stay on the pulse of what's going on, this course definitely delivers that for you.
I recommend you try it. It's a really great program. Good luck.
Awesome. Well, that about wraps up the meat and potatoes of the presentation. So I want to thank the audience for sticking with us through to the end. We'll be hanging out here until we see everybody go to field any questions. But again, thank you very much for joining, and thank you, Whitney, and thank you, Gabe, for joining us as well.
Great, and thank you, Logan.
Thank you, Logan.
So we do have one question for the team here already, and is there a difference between what businesses are looking for and what learners are looking for?
I can answer that one. Yeah, there is. Typically, when you look at a learner's goal, it's, as Whitney mentioned, it's aligned to certification. So you kind of, the success metric would be course completion. So do we complete the course? Because you can't really say, hey, I took half a course when you're, looking to get into a new career or something like that. So I would say more it's either going to be course completion or certification, or if they already have the job, then they're just looking for skills. So that we would call that upskilling. And then from a business perspective, it kind of depends what they're using it for. If they're using it for a digital initiative, so say I've decided to move to the organization to the cloud, and we want to, train our techs up on a specific either Azure or Microsoft Azure, we're going with AWS, and we need to, do a comprehensive training program. But we don't necessarily need everyone certified. They might, need 2 or 3 of those skills in any one program. So for their perspective, it's not so much the emphasis on course completion. It's more, I need this specific skill. So I guess it would depend on what the goals are for each. If that answers the question.
Great. Thanks very much.
No, I completely agree with you.
Great. Well, that seems to be all the questions we have coming in for now. And I just want to thank everyone again for joining us. Thank you, Gabe. Thank you, Whitney. And, of course, again, Logan. Now, for those of you who registered through WebEx, please keep an eye out on your email because we'll be sending you a follow-up soon that has a recording of this videos that you can review at your convenience. And, of course, feel free to share it. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact us. Here are the email addresses for all of us on the panel. And thank you very much for joining us. And we'll see you next time.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.